solve problems involving matrices. And when I'm talking about problems, I'm talking about systems of equations. I'm going to give you another way to solve systems of equations. So let's go around, and I'm going to pick on Logan first. Tell me what's the dimensions of this one right here. 1 by 1 is right. Pick somebody. Trevor, what are these dimensions? 2 by 1. Pick somebody.
3 by 3.
3 by 3. Pick somebody. 2 by 4. Good. So, we've been able to practice those dimensions, and before we actually go on to our first problem, write down make a 2 by 2 matrix for me. And put the identity matrix for a 2 by 2 in there. So it's something we haven't seen for a long time. I just want to see how many of you remember the identity matrix for a 2 by 2. It's not a trig identity, if that makes you feel any better. Okay? Anybody remember? What numbers are identity numbers for? 1s and 0s is right. Nope, no A and B needed. That's for later. Nope, just 1s and 0s are going to be needed. Yeah. 1, 1. This diagonal always gets the 1s, and then everything else gets filled in with 0s. That's my identity matrix. Because if I take a matrix and multiply it by that, I'll always get the original matrix back. What about 3 by 3? Go ahead and make a 3 by 3 on your paper and see if you can make the identity matrix for a 3 by 3. Now, if you remember back to Algebra 2, and most of us probably don't because it's been a long, long time. Actually, maybe do it with like a 4 by 4 and 5 by 5 also. But here we're only going to do 3 by 3. And that's what you have. That's it. That's the identity matrix, right? So if I take another 3 by 3 and multiply it by that, I'm going to get the original matrix back. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So here I've got 2 variables, 2 equations, and we're going to solve them using matrices. But we're not going to solve them using the matrices that you've done in Algebra 2. What we're going to do first is make what's called an augmented matrix. So we'll write that down. Augmented matrix. Making the augmented matrix is actually very, very simple. It sounds difficult, but it's actually very simple. So, it's actually going to be a 2 by 3. Okay? Anybody want to take a guess what numbers I'm going to put here? 3 and 1. How'd you get that, Whitney? That's right. Those are my X's, right? All right. So what would be this column right here? -2, -1. Now, with an augmented matrix, we actually put a dotted line after what we have been known as the coefficient matrix. What we've talked about before is the coefficient matrix. And then after the dotted line, we write our answers. So officially, you made your first augmented matrix. Pretty simple so far? Exactly. Okay? So now, our goal is to add these, to subtract these, to multiply these, to do things to them that will make this right here, this 2 by 2, into the identity matrix. Okay? That means I need to start with a 1 and have a 0. I need a 0 and I need a 1. Okay. Well, before I start anything, I'm going to call this row 1, I'm going to call this row 2. Just so that as we're writing things, I like to write down, here's what I'm doing first, here's what I'm doing. And these are going to take us a little bit of work. So, first thing I noticed is you see a 1 right here, right? and I actually want the one where? I want it above it, don't I? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to switch them. So 1, negative 1, 3, negative 2, negative 1, and 0. Okay. So now I have a 1 in the spot I want it to be. Now, what number do I want this to be? I want this 3 to be a 0, right? So I can't flip it. I can't turn it this way. I can flip them this way. But what I can do is what you did before. Go ahead, Whitney.
Can't you, would you not cancel it out and then find the 12 over 3 is that a 0?
So you're saying take 3 times row 1 and add it now to row 2.
Exactly.
How about I make that negative 3 then? Does that work for you? Okay. So what she said was, how about we take this top row and multiply it by negative 3 and add it to the second row. Well, if I multiply this by negative 3 and add it to here, what's going to happen? This row's going to stay the same. This is the only row that's going to change. Okay? So, like we just said, the top row stays the same. 1, negative 1, negative 1. And if I multiply this by negative 3, this becomes a 0. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, right? Plus negative 2 is? Well, this is working out. I've got 0 and 1 now. This times negative 3 is 3 plus 0 is 3. So far, okay? Now, like I said, this needs to be the identity matrix. So far I have my 1, but I need 2 zeros. I've got 1. How am I going to make that a 0? Can I get somebody other than Whitney this time? Whitney, you're doing great. How can I make that a 0? I can't just... Are you thinking I add 1, just like right here? Well, I kind of can. Look right here. See how this is a 1? What would happen if I add row 1 and row 2 together and put it up here? That's going to cancel that, isn't it? What did you say? So I'm going to add row 1 and row 2 and keep it up here. So I'll have 1, 0, 3 and negative 1 make 2, right? And on the bottom row, the bottom stays the same. So I'm only ever changing one line at a time. So my answer to this problem is 2, 3. After you write down these problems, go ahead and write the augmented matrix. Remember, the augmented matrix just has all these numbers in it, right? I'll go ahead and write mine up here. I'm actually going to move this up a little bit if you guys are okay with that. Is that good? That way we have lots of room. 1, 2, 3. 3, 7, 8, 10. And this is where Sacco's writing actually comes in handy. Or Logan. You know, that really tiny writing actually does come in handy. Now, I'm going to give you the recommendation with this that I've actually seen work, okay? The easiest thing to do is to first get this one to be a 1. Okay, we did that. The next easiest thing to do is to make these 2 zeros. That's the next easiest thing to do. I know a lot of people want to try to make that a 1 and then try to make that a 1. No. Make the first two zeros that you need to make. So, how do I make this a zero?
Row 1 times 2 minus row 2.
You could do that. How about I do row 1 times negative 2 plus row 2. Now, do you know why I do it that way? Yeah, I'm terrible at subtracting. You want to do two things at once or just one at a time? One at a time? Okay. As you get better, maybe you can do two at a time. So, honestly, you know what I do? This is my work section. So I'm going to multiply row 1 by negative 2, negative 2, negative 6, negative 8, and negative 14. Now I can add it and just put it straight into the matrix, if that helps you. I'm not good at multiplying in my head and then trying to add at the same time or anything like that. So I've got 1, 3, 4, 7. That stays the same. 0, negative 3, negative 4, and negative 4. Okay. What? You see how I made that a 0? So I multiplied this row right here by negative 2 because negative 2 times 1 gives me negative 2. And if I add it to this, what happens? It made it a 0. So I'm only looking for 1 0 at a time to make. Back up.
How is, would it be that middle one, that middle 3 be a 1 because
Yep. I messed up a few of my numbers there. I looked over too far. 7 and negative 6 make 1. 5 and negative 8 make negative 3. 10 and negative 14 make negative 4. There we go. Is that better for you guys? Go ahead and do it on your paper. I'm going to try to see if I can get some of them. Okay, so which one do I want to make a 0 now? What number should turn into a 0 next? The 3. This 3 right here. How am I going to do that? Row 1 times negative 3 plus row 3.
Do you multiply rows together?
No. Good question, Whitney. No.
Just multiply by whatever.
Yes. So you can multiply them by a scalar, which is a number, and you can add them. You can actually subtract them too, but I don't like to.
How come you can just multiply rows?
It's kind of like you can't just multiply matrices straight across. It has to be by row by column. So 1, 3, 4, 7, 0, 1, negative 3, negative 4, 0. Oh, this is working out. 1, negative 8, and 6. Everybody agree so far? Okay. Actually, it will need to be a 0 eventually, right? I'm sorry, it will need to be a 1, but this will need to be a 0, right? So, we took care of everything in this first row, didn't we? First column. Okay, so now we want to take care of the second column. So, first thing you look for is the middle one, a 1. We're doing good so far. Which one of these two do you want to make zeros first? It honestly doesn't matter. So if you want to make the top one a 0, do it. If you want to make the bottom one a 0, do it. So I'm going to do the bottom one. What do I need to do in order to make this bottom a 0? Row 2 times negative 1 plus row 3. gonna do two at the same time now. No, okay, Caitlin says no, so never mind. I mean, Caitlin had this utterly disgusted face. And then it's like, no, okay. We'll do one at a time then, Miss Caitlin, that's good. Alright, so my top line stays the same. 1, 3, 4, 7. 0, 1, negative 3, negative 4. And I need right here some work. So negative 1, 3, and 4 is my work. 0, 0. Negative 8 and 3 make what? Negative 5. 6 and 4 make 10. This is like a lot of, in all honesty, this is a lot of follow one step, show me another step, show me another step. And this is,
Because I could not even saying it, I could solve this with negative 3 minus negative 3 plus 3 would be something that I could do. Negative 3 minus negative 8 would be something plus 5 would be the same thing.
but I'm at it.
Yeah, and you add and you get.
What did you get for the 10? Did you have negative 10?
Yeah.
That's okay, so our numbers are just off.
Doesn't really matter.
It'll work,
Okay.
okay? This is a way for somebody to follow your work step by step. You guys remember when you were doing systems of equations, like you were adding things, you were subtracting things, and when you came up and had a mistake for me, I had to look starting from the beginning, right? Well, now I can see, I won't need to even talk to Justin if he comes up, because I can look at it and be like, all right, this is what he did. That makes sense. Okay, this is what he did. That makes sense. This is a very logical way of going through this little step by little step. Okay, which one do I need to make 0 now? Top what? The top 3, okay. I'm going to erase a little bit here. We'll erase just that much, okay. How do I make the top one a 0? Go ahead, Whitney, I'll give you this one. Wait, try again? Okay, row 2, sorry. Plus? So if I multiply this by negative 3, it stays 0. And then I add it, it stays a 1. The middle one's going to become a 0. Row 2 times negative 3. Let me write some work over here. Negative 3, 9, and 12, right? 9 plus 4 is 13, you said? And 7 and 12 make? Negative 4 and 12. Okay, I got that. And now 7 and 12? There you go. I could tell. It's like, 0, 1, negative 3, negative 4. That stays the same. Okay. Caitlin, I think you can stick with me if I do one more step in that same matrix. Okay? Are you ready for it? See how this already has both zeros and now I've got a negative 5? How am I going to make this a 1? What can I do to negative 5 to make it into a 1? What? Can't, no add. No add. You can't add on this part. If I add row 3 and row 1, I'm going to get a 1 there.
Okay, so you want to multiply like.
How about I just take, how about I just take this row and divide it? to multiply by a scalar. And this is the same as negative 1/5, isn't it? I could think of it as multiplying as negative 1/5. What goes into both 5 and 10? 5, right? So I'm dividing them both more or less by 5, but I'm going to use negative 5, so this becomes a positive 1. And if I divide this by negative 5, I get yep. Because look, all along, what have we been doing? We've been multiplying by a scalar, a number. This right here, dividing, is the same thing as multiplying. Dividing and multiplying are the exact same thing. We're getting close. We're almost there. No, I can't, no. I can't divide this one by 13 because I've got the 1 here. I could only do that because it was one number that I needed. So how do I get rid of this 13? I am going to make it a 0, but which row is going to help you? See, here's the thing. Yeah, I need a number with that one. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 13 and add it to row 1. So I get 1, 0, negative 13 and 13 will make 0. What's negative 13 times negative 2? 26 plus 19. So I multiplied this right here by negative 13, and I added it to that 19. Okay, so that'll be our last step we have to do here. I'll be honest, as you're looking in the middle of this problem, you're not going to see, oh, that makes sense. It takes some time to actually see the whole process.
What if that would be original 13, it would be negative 1.
Negative 13 times negative 2 is plus row 1. Negative 13 times 1 is plus 13 is.
Oh, I didn't see it plus row 1.
Does that make sense? Okay, one last step. One last step and we're done with this one. Okay. How do I make this 0? So row 3 by 3 plus row 2. I have 1, 0, 0, 45. The bottom row stays the same, right? 0, 0, 1, negative 2. And if I multiply this by 3, I'll still have 0, 1. What's going to happen right here? 3 times negative 2 is plus negative 4 is done. And that's my answer to this problem. Okay. All right. Yeah, here's what we're going to do.
I will be here tomorrow.
Here's what we're going to do. We're recording. I'll wait. Okay. homework due Monday instead of tomorrow.